We are live. What's up? I was just about to say, I don't know if we're live, and then it came up, you're live. What's up, Unleash You Now Nation, the Unleashed, as I like to call them. So we're back with your story, your power. I'm sitting in with the man, Hush Inner Bully, Foster Your Growth, a million others. Has goats. He put in like a whole pasture, right, in like 2 days. He didn't even know he affected my life with this because it took me like years to put in pastures for the horse farm I have. And I was like, he's like, oh, he's building this farm. I'm like, oh, it's going to take so long. It's like 2 days later, he's like, we're done. Look at it. I'm like, what? Like, how'd you do it in 2 days? Right? Like, it took me 8 years, and I had people come over and do it for free with me. But he does awesome work. Awesome dude. Awesome coach. I had the pleasure of meeting him. Now I call him brother. He really gets bothered when I do that. And I actually get to see him in October at Unleash You Now Live. The one, the only, the myth, the legend, the man, Shawn Douglas. What's up, brother?
What's up, what's up, what's up?
What up? So before we get too crazy, tell us about you. Like, I know I just did a weird, brief synopsis of your fence building. But, like, who is Shawn Douglas? What do you got going on? What are you doing? Just a little bit into your life.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Single white. No. Let me start over. This isn't a dating site. That was the other show. No. Married, wonderful wife. We just celebrated 20 years. We've run a group home for kids in foster care for the last 18 years. Certified coach. Entrepreneur, always have my hands in things I probably shouldn't. I mean, always have my hands in lots of things, lots of fun, getting ready to launch some new things, putting to rest some old things. It's the cycle of life. Yes, we built a pasture. It didn't take 2 days. It took 5 days. Come on, man.
My fault.
And it was only a half an acre, and it was only like 64 posts that we pounded into the ground. And I hired somebody to do the pounding because that's what you do when, you know, I tell my kids this all the time. All right. So foster kids, you always get this kid that comes in and he's like, I can change your oil for you. I'm like, yeah, I know how to change the oil too, because that was a requirement my dad made before I got my license, is I had to know how to change the oil. And I've done it a couple times. But you know what? I make money so that I can pay people to do the things I don't want to do. And I'm not a mechanic. Funny story, when we first got married, my wife and I, she had a Saturn, and we needed to change the starter or the alternator, one of the two. I don't remember what it was, but I called my brother. My older brother's a mechanic. I'm like, David Lee, can I do this? He's like, oh yeah, it's easy. And he kind of walks me through the process. He's like, you can do it. No big deal. No problem. Right. So I go to AutoZone or whatever it was, and I buy the part and I get it home. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. And it's a Sunday after church. And at the time, I'm a youth pastor. My wife's a teacher. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out. And we're living in this janky apartment in an apartment complex. I'm like, in Florida, it's 100 bazillion degrees outside. I'm going to go out and I'm going to change this alternator. And so I go out, and like an hour later, I still don't have this damn thing off the car. I can't get the tensioner to release, can't get the belt off, like none of this crap. And I go back in and I looked at her. I said, honey, I've had an epiphany. I'm not a mechanic, and I'm okay with that. Let's call a tow truck. Like, that's the last time I've ever worked on a car. Like, you got to know your skills. You got to know what you're gifted at. You got to know your potential. And then you have to know what you enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, then why waste the energy?
True. I love that. One of the biggest things I've been working on in my own life, and also preaching to others, is making sure what you do aligns with you, right? Like, what can you say no to? What can you hand off? What can you pay for someone else? What can someone else in your team do? Because the more you're focusing on things that, one, you're passionate about, but also that you're skilled at, the more progress you're going to make.
Right.
I think one of the things when I was young, everybody was like, dude, work on things that you're weak at, work on the things you're weak at, and then my strength started to stop. People started catching up to my strengths. And my weaknesses were trying to get better, and I was losing what I was good at rather than focusing what I was good at and doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, right? I think Gary Vee says something about quadrupling down.
Build on your strengths and farm out your weaknesses, man. If you can get rid of, you can pay somebody to take care of those things you're not good at, then why frustrate yourself? Why do that? Like this whole pasture thing. I'm not a farmer. My God, I didn't grow up on a farm. And we're building this kind of mini farm, I don't experience Airbnb with goats and miniature horses and all sorts of fun stuff. And so we needed a pasture. Like we got to have a pasture. I've never put a fence up in my freaking life, especially one that has to contain like animals. Like what is that? So I found somebody that knew what they were doing, and this guy, I kid you not. So he comes to me and he says, he shows up and he's talking about, he's got this machine that'll pound the posts in. I'm like, cool, awesome. And he's like, and then I can help you stretch the fence. And I'm like, that's awesome, because I have not a clue as to what I'm doing. Never done this before. I will pay you for your expertise. And he's like, yeah, I can't really do much anymore because a couple of years ago I had a stroke and I only have 13% heart function. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I have this guy, he's like, I'll run the Bobcat, you do the work. I was like, I can do this, right? So we worked for 3 days. He's pounding posts. He's sitting in there. And his joke, the biggest joke, is my thumb's getting tired. I'm like, dude, really? It was like, I'm lifting posts and I'm pounding the staples in and all this bull crap. But like, and then I go to pay him at the end, and he gives me this invoice, and we're debating, because his thing was, well, you pay me $10 a post, and then for stretching the fence, just pay me what you think I'm worth. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, cool. So we get to the end of the day. I'm like, okay, well, is this fair? He goes, that's too much. I'm like, dude, like, do you know what you've saved me? Do you know, like, your expertise, the knowledge that you gave me, the mentorship, the just the guidance, and you provided the equipment, like, and so I want to pay you. And he's like, no, that's too much. Just give me this much. So I go, of course, and I write him the check, and I write it for what I felt it should be. And I hand it to him. He goes, no. I said, I'm sorry, I messed up. You're just going to have to live with it.
Yeah. But I can't waste that check.
Right. I don't have another one. If you want paid, you're just going to have to take it. But seriously, and that's one of the things I think a lot of people get jacked up is they want to not take advantage of, but they want other people's knowledge, but are they willing to invest in it? Are they willing to put themselves out there? I was doing the labor, like literally I was doing the labor, and he was the guide. He was Yoda. And
right.
And I'm wholeheartedly willing to pay for that, because I didn't have that knowledge. And can you imagine me out there trying to stretch a fence with the wrong equipment?
I don't know what that means.
Okay. With the wrong equipment and no knowledge, like I'm gonna have to YouTube this, like sit and go, how the hell do you stretch a fence so that a goat doesn't get out? I don't know. But I found a guy who knew, and you know what? It took a project that probably could have taken me 6 weeks to try and get done. Like you said, it takes forever. And in literally 4 days, we have a half an acre of pasture fenced in and ready to go.
Dude, that's still one of the hardest things for me personally, is not taking on the job and saying, I have to do this myself. Right? Like, that's one of the hardest things still for me. And what you said is 100% true. It's paying for knowledge, right? That you can gain and save you time is like, it's genius, because our life is measured in time. And the more time I have to waste and spend doing something that I can learn to do like this and get it done, like you said, in 1/6 of the time, right? And I mean, that's beautiful. How much you made it where you could spend time with your family, right? Like in personal growth, because I know that's big on the businesses you have, because I know that's big for you, right? Like that time you opened up just by that man's knowledge and his equipment. Whew.
Man, time is the only thing we have that's finite. I mean, in a world of in a world of abundance, and I know that you agree with me that we live in a universe that's abundant, where there's none of this scarcity crap. That that there's infinite resources out there, but time is that one limited resource. Like we all have the same amount of it, and you can't get it back. So, if you can spend $500 to save yourself 5 hours, how much are those 5 hours worth? And in relationship, in focusing then on your strengths, in focusing on building what you need to do, what you need to focus on. And don't get me wrong, for the longest time, that was something that I struggled with, is like, man, I'm just going to be cheap and I'm going to try and figure it out on my own. And even in business building stuff, it's like, yeah, well, I can just go to YouTube and I can figure this out, or I can build the website myself because I can take the tutorial and figure out how to use Dreamweaver. And if you know what Dreamweaver is, then you've been at this a long time. And if you don't, then you should probably Google it. And I can figure out how to build this site, or I can spend a few $100s and pay somebody else to work in their strengths, and they can do it in an hour, and we can move on to the next thing.
Dude, I was on two things. One, I want to say hi. What's up, Rob White? He commented. And what's up, Margaret McClure? She commented. Both on Unleash You now or Unleash part of the family. If you want, you can comment on anything. We definitely try to be interactive with this. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely put them in the chat and be part of the show. Now, one of the things you said, I used to be on panels a lot, right? Because I was trying to figure out how to get in the speaking business that I was trying to get in and move up and be able to get on stages. And one of the easiest ways I found was people were they wouldn't love to give you a speaking spot on stage at a conference or big event if they didn't know you. So I was like, all right, how can I get known by them, right? So they would have extra events going on at their conferences that were like panels and workshops, and they were looking for people to come in for those. So I would get on panels. I'll never forget one of my first panels I sat in. They were talking about the most important resources on earth. And there was a couple people before me, and they were talking about mostly money, right? It was mostly money or what money can provide. And when it got to me, I said the most precious resource on earth to me is time, because you can take all my money, I can get that back. Like, I know how business works. It's like there's steps to this, and as long as you do those steps, it will work out for you most of the time. But time, I haven't figured out how to make any of it or get any of it back, right? Like, time is lost when it's lost. You take my time, it's gone forever. And all I know is my bank account of time is getting less, right? Like, I don't know how to add to it. Like, I try to stay active, right? I try to eat better, right? But like, you could do all those things. I've seen people that I knew that were in amazing shape that were in a horrible accident, or, just life itself. There's numerous different, like, think about now with COVID and different things going on, like, people you knew that were fine are not here. Yeah. So when we talk about time's the most precious resource, because with it, I can do so much, and without it, I'm gone. And money, without it, I've been without money, right? Like, it was a weird story about me. I didn't have to be without money. I chose to be without money. It was really weird. I never said I was smart, right? And by doing that, I was like, but it made me learn. I was like, I don't need money, right? Like, I can use it. Don't get me wrong. I don't think money's evil, right? Like, I want to make it. I enjoy some of the things it does bring. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy spending time with my family. I enjoy doing things of that nature. But it's, if you take all that, I can still make it. But you take my time, I'm gone. The greatest head shake ever.
So let's get into this a little bit. I there's nothing to add there. I mean, if you've made $1, you can make 100. If you've made 100, you can make 1,000. If you made 1,000, you can make 100,000. If you made 100,000, you can make 1,000,000. Like, but if you've spent a minute, like, there is absolutely no way to recoup that. Like, you can't go, oh, well, I'm gonna make that up somewhere. Like, no, it's like, sayonara, hasta luego. You're gone. Right,
it's over. And the more we can focus on how can we save time, right? Like, I remember when I was young and dumb. Now I'm old and dumb. Only thing changed is my age. But when I was young and dumb, I would not invest in someone doing something for me. I would say, no, I'm going to learn how. No, I'm going to learn how. I'm going to learn how. I was in business young. And when I was in those businesses, I was taking so much time learning something that people knew already that I could have learned by taking 10 minutes and reading a book, or taking an hour and, involved in a mentor. I always think because I coach a lot of young people in sports and in life, right? Like, even though, don't ever call me a life coach. And what I always tell them is invest in ways to grow faster, right? Because then more is possible, more is capable, and you'll see the grandeur of life faster when you start growing at a higher rate. It's like I blame my 20s on not trying to grow and just trying to be like stubborn and like, I'm the man, I got this. And now I'm like, how stupid was I? Still didn't change. So let's dive into a little bit of Shawn Douglas, right? So it's your story, your power. And we bring people on the show that really just have owned their power. All right. And I love learning more about you and stalking your Facebook and your posts, because you do some interesting posts to get a bunch of people perspective. And I love how you word your posts, because you're wording it as you're not saying an opinion, you're saying a statement and seeing what people feel about it. And then how many times people on your post then address you like you made the statement. All right. They're like, no, but you didn't see. And you're like, no, I just said, do you agree or disagree? Like, I just said a statement. Like, it's not my statement. I'm posing it as to see what you feel about the statement. Right. And it's always funny to see that happen numerous times.
It is interesting. I've actually changed my strategy a little bit in the last couple of weeks, because I would pose questions or statements and I would use the term you a lot. And apparently that's triggering for some people. Triggering, they don't like to be in I never intentionally targeting somebody saying, you're like this or you. And so I've actually started changing that you to I, so that then people can kind of reflect on that, well, maybe I'm not pointing a finger at them. Maybe I'm just speaking the truth for myself. It's so funny what people will fight for. And one of my mentors taught me, what you fight for, you get. And if you want to fight for sickness and depression and anxiety, and if that's what you want to cling to, then absolutely and 100% that is what you're going to experience in your life. And I'm not like don't misquote me here. I work in the mental health field. So I'm not denying that there are valid, legitimate diagnoses of depression and anxiety and those sorts of things. But as human beings, we have the ability, we have that gift of metacognition. We can think about what we're thinking about. And we have the choice to then actively change those thoughts. And so if you want to, or you've chosen to have that habit of negative, anxious, depressive thoughts, and you want to wallow in those things, then 110% that is what your life is going to be. But you can also stand up at any moment and say, I want different for myself. And I can change that habit.
100%.
And one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett is, the chains of habit are too light to feel until they're too heavy to change, or something along those lines. We don't realize the habits that we're creating for ourselves. We don't realize the thought patterns that we're creating for ourselves until we're stuck in them. And then a lot of times it takes somebody from the outside to point to us and to point that out and say, you know what? You don't have to live that reality. You're choosing to live that reality.
Right. I think two things. One, I think Tony Robbins, where he says, wherever your focus goes, energy grows, right? Goes. And so if you're focusing on those things you don't want, your energy is going towards the things you don't want, right? It's like the NASCAR driver, when you're taking those hard turns, if you stare at the wall, if you focus on the wall, you're going to hit the wall. it's what you focus on, you're normally going to get. And also now, I think we're so quick to label things now. It's we want to label. Everybody wants a label to something, right? It's funny. It's like I try not to talk about politics really at all. But if you say a statement like anything, right? Right? If you say a statement like, go cops, right? Or go protesters, right? Automatic, you're either a liberal or a conservative, right? Like I can't say I support both lives as human lives, just being a human being. No, it's if I say one, I'm definitely this way, and if I say the other, I'm definitely that way, right? And it's like because we want to label and put people in boxes to feel like we're in control of something, and then there's always a side. We want sides because we want to argue against sides. We want to be able to know who our enemy is, right? And it's like we do. I laugh. I always say, like one of the biggest misconceptions is the Civil War, right? I'll bring history, and it's like we defeated the Confederacy, right? But that's thinking the Confederacy was a territory, not an ideology, not like a thought process, not an ideology, right? So
Yeah.
right. So it's like it's different but we wanted to have sides, and we want things to be polar opposites and sides because it makes it more comfortable to know who's like us and who's not, right? Because I want to look at someone and be like, they're the bad people, right? We're the just, and so we're so quick to label things. So my daughter is having a test, right? She's taking a test. It was like a final of this past year. She's like, Dad, my anxiety's going crazy. And I'm like, your anxiety's going crazy? Like, when were you diagnosed with anxiety? Right? Like, and I'm with you. I was in the mental health field for years. So I'm like, what makes your anxiety go crazy? She's like, I have this test. I'm like, oh, you're called nervous. No. I'm like, would you be anxious without the test? Like, and she's like, why would I be anxious without the test? I'm like, well, that's anxiety. Like, if you're it's because of this, that's now. I mean, that's not every situation. Sometimes you can be triggered by something to bring you back to another to cause the anxious, but also then that's that subject or that issue causing it. And if that's the case, then we can work through that to make you not it. Right? So my thing is, it's not we want to label everything. Like if I'm sad, I'm depressed. No, I'm just sad. Like I'm a human being. I have emotions. Right? Like there was a rough patch in April where it was like for like 3 days I was kind of down. And like everybody sent me messages, you sound depressed these days. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just sad. Like I just had a bad couple of days. Like life will be good. Life's good, right? Like I'm not depressed, right? But we're so quick to label everything now. So that I think too is why everything went to extreme. Why is there like since 1970, it's like 70% more people on mental health meds than were before. We want to label everything, and everything's to extreme polar opposites.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion. Yeah. So let's dive into Shawn Douglas, right? Your story is your power. So guy that runs multiple businesses, takes care of huge family. Every time I see it, it's bigger. Right? I'm always like, where does he? Like, he just grows, right? And
you exaggerate, man, but that's okay.
I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
See, so
we'll go with it. I've got 23 kids.
I mean, 22 is my favorite number, so I like evens. But I'll take.
I'm sorry, I messed that up. We have 22 kids. We lost one.
don't claim me, right? But where did Shawn Douglas come from? Like, what was the beginning of Shawn Douglas like?
Well, you see in the beginning, you see in the beginning, I won a race and as a swimmer.
Nice. Winning races are important.
I've been a winner from the beginning, man.
They're right, 100%.
Wow. So I'm the oldest, the youngest, and the middle, and the only child. I have that's born in Western Pennsylvania. This could go so many ways.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Uh,
I said the rules. I said laugh, cry, and think. I think so far we laughed and thought. We got one left to do.
Yeah, we're not going to go there. No, born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. Where did Shawn come from? Good Lord, that's a loaded question, dude. That like life history we could be here all day.
Right, yeah, no, that's the point.
That's the point. No,
Marathon
nobody wants to hang out all day with us. And so a blended family. My mom was married, had a couple kids, divorced, met my dad, got married, had me. They ended up splitting ways, and then my dad got remarried. So I have older half siblings. I have younger step brothers and a younger half brother. So it very much a middle child, I guess you would say. And growing up, pretty much an average, your average Joe. Grew up in a church, ended up going to Bible school when I was out of high school, met my wife at Bible college, was a youth pastor, was going to save the world. Came from a very religious background, and then woke up to reality. And and I guess one of the highlights of my life as a kid was when my mom left when I was younger. That really left a mark, and something that as you're growing and you become self-aware, you think that you've dealt with, and then you grow a little more and you realize, oh, there it is again. And so you have to face it and deal with it again, and then you grow a little more, and then you're like, oh shit, there it is again. And so you have to face it and deal with it again. And then you get married, and then you're like, there it is again. And you face it. And so the over and over, these things that happen as kids, you face them over and over and over again. And so 4 or 5 years ago, I began this journey of personal growth and self-awareness. And really all my life, I've struggled with being enough, always feeling like I had to ask other people for permission to show up, ask for permission to lead, ask for permission to be successful, really always trying to please other people because I didn't feel like anybody would appreciate me or love me just for who I am, even though I have an amazing, absolutely amazing wife who for the last 20 years has tried to convince me of this, but because of my own garbage, really struggle of still trying to perform to be accepted. And so 3 years ago, really struggling with that inner voice of, you're not enough, you're never going to make it, you're just lazy. And I mean, you think about this. In college, I worked 2 or 3 jobs and took a full credit load and averaged 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night because that voice was, you're not enough, you're never going to make it. And in life, always being involved in multiple businesses, always working, because of that voice of, you're not enough, you're never going to make it, you're too stupid, you're too dumb, you're too fat, you're too ugly, that we all have that inner dialogue. And so 4 years ago, driving, I had flown to California to help my dad move. My dad had moved to California and we wanted to move back. And so I flew out because the movers that we had hired were assholes, basically. And at the last minute wanted to jack him around and say, it's going to be another $4,000 to move. And I had already paid them, a ridiculous amount of money. So I just up and flew out, rented a U-Haul truck. We loaded him up and started driving back across country. And you know, I'm the guy that we're just going to do this. We're just going to go. And so hammer down driving. And day 3, listening to a lesson from my mentor and driving down 75 about 45 minutes from home after driving, you know, 40 hours or whatever in 72 hours across the country, driving down 75 from Michigan into Ohio, and listening to this, and this idea of hush the inner bully was born. You know, and I'm weeping because I'm listening to my mentor and you know, understanding that, you know, where this voice had come from, and this idea, and that we all have this identity on the inside that really doesn't match what's true. And so it became my passion and my mission to help people hush the inner bully, because we have that inner voice that wants to kick our ass. And honestly, you know, if we look at the reality of it, that voice is there to try and keep us safe. It's not malintent. It's not mean-spirited. It's there because it's trying to keep us safe and comfortable. And if we learn to become aware of that voice, and then we learn to redefine what that voice says, and really hush that inner bully, then the sky is the limit as to what our potential is. And that's really kind of who I am. That's for a long time I struggled with not being good enough. And you can go back and you can look at the things in my life that kind of caused that. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is that no, every one of us is enough. And you as an individual, you don't need to go ask somebody else for permission. You know, there's not some guy out there that you need to ask permission for to live your dream and to live into your passion. You have to own it, and you have to know who you are, and then you have to go for it.
All right. One of the things I talk about a lot in my lives and also on stage is that the idea of the most important conversation you have every day is with yourself.
Yes.
All right. It's like, what are you telling yourself? What are you accepting about yourself? What are you believing about yourself? That those are the things that really will direct our life and our actions towards getting the results that we're going to get. So the more that we let that voice, I would say, punk me, right? The more I let that voice punk me, the more results I'm going to be punked out of.
Right.
And what can someone do to kind of start controlling it in the mental health world, right? We'll call it ants, your automatic negative thoughts, right? And it's what can someone do to start, one, talking back, because it's important to talk back to that, in my opinion. And then two, different ways of having that conversation, that dialogue in here, where it's proactive, where it's useful, where it's purpose driven, and not holding back or making you feel less, where you're using it for you and not against you.
I think the first step is recognizing that it's there. Recognizing that voice is there, and recognizing that voice isn't a reflection of reality. I shared something on Facebook yesterday that talked about this concept that the reality that we experience is only the reality from our perspective. And that when I show up, you see me in a different light than my son sees me, or that my wife sees me. And so there's really 1,000 different realities of us running around on this planet. And it's really based on the perception that you choose to look at it from. And so I think the key is, number one, to recognize it. Number two is to recognize that that's not reality, that whatever that voice is saying to you is not reality. It's based on those subconscious beliefs that you have that were created based on, you know, your childhood, based on the past. And although you may not be responsible for what happened to you as a kid, you are responsible for where you are currently. And and therefore you're responsible for where you're headed. And so it's your responsibility to take control of those thoughts and change them. You know, the only time you're going to experience 100% freedom in your life is when you 100% decide that you are responsible for you and for your results. Like it's nobody else. You don't get to blame your parents. Okay, so you had a shitty childhood. Great, wonderful. You don't, and this is hard for people to deal with. Yeah, you may have been abused, but in the here and now, you are responsible for you. You know, you can't blame somebody else. You have to take responsibility for where you're at and where you're headed. And if you're not willing to do that, and you want to play that victim card, then you're just going to have to live with the shit. And you're just, that's your choice. And if that's the way you want to live, then that's fine. But don't try and pull everybody else into it. You know, don't try and pull everybody else into your shit show.
Nice. There's a couple of things that you made me think about right there, right? One, you made me think about Will Smith when he said, it's not your fault, but it's damn sure your responsibility. Right. Like what happened to you in your life might not be your fault, but it's damn sure your responsibility to deal with it so you can live the best life, right? To grow from it so you can live your best life and do your thing. It's your responsibility how you go about your business, right? No one dictates that, even if they did something to you, right? Which is very hard, especially for me, because I used to have a hell of an anger issue. And I used to be like, no, but they made me mad. I was like, they might have. But it's your fault how you acted on it, right? And it's your fault that you let them do that. I always laugh when you said a matter of perspective, because I always say my mom thinks I'm the greatest person on earth. All right, she does. So she's like, Michael's so amazing, right? Like, and she said this when I was a huge mess up too. Like, it was really weird, right? But she thinks I'm like the greatest person to walk earth, and my ex thinks I'm the worst, right? And I imagine I'm somewhere in the middle, but it's all perspective based. And that's like what you were talking about.
Yeah, it is 100% perspective.
I almost thought I was going down there. I can't hide. Look at that. It's contagious. I can't hide a cough because I'm so pale. It comes really red. All right. You're welcome. I gave that to you. And the other thing I talk about a lot is owning your power, right? Right. And owning your power in the moments where the outside world tries to pull you, and people will try to pull you. I mean, we see it all the time. Social media, all the time. People are trying to polarize. People are trying to pull you in, right? They're trying to get you. They're trying to get you to do something, but you have to do it, right? And that's on you. That's your power. You don't, just because they said that, you don't have to acknowledge it. You don't have to defend it, right? Like, you don't have to be involved in that. And the media does it all the time. They play bases and they try to get people excited and to feel moved by something, to then watch more of it, to then be able to sell ads, right? But the idea of this is like owning our power, that no one dictates anything we do but us. And the more you can do that, like you said, the results of your life change. And I always say you play 3 parts in your story. The first part I played was the villain of my story. I was the bad guy. I was getting in trouble. I felt I had a lot of pain. And as a kid and a young man, I didn't know it was okay to be upset. I didn't know men got upset. Men got angry, right? So I couldn't express my pain, so I wanted you to feel it, because then I thought we could relate, right? And you heard me. You saw me, right, for who I was and what I was going through. And I thought that was going to be the worst part of my story. But the worst part was the next part. And that was the victim. And I became, I would say, the damsel in distress. For like 10 years, I was waiting for someone to save my life. I'm like, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't anyone coming to save me?
Yep.
And then like I had this like weird like moment, this aha moment, the epiphany, where it was just like, I have to be the hero of my story. Like, no one's coming to do that but me. I have to, or I'll never get it. And I would say, like, how long are you willing to play those parts? Because I played each part for like 10 plus years. Hell, I was the villain for like 20 years. Right. So it's like, how much of my life was I'm willing to give up? Because like we said, I don't know how much time I have. How much time are you willing to give up being the victim? How much time are you willing to give up to be the villain? And how much time do you want to relish in the role of being your hero? It's your choice. So I want to ask you another question now. I want to dive into another area of your life. So I know you're one of the blessed souls that just an amazing person, do amazing things, and you always try to downplay how much amazing things you do, which I love that humble side of you. I just don't let it happen. But what got you into being in the foster parent realm and foster care realm? Because they need people like you in it. So that sounded bad. They need people like you in it, right? Anyway, what really made you dive into that full and really be there for kids like that, kids that are looking and needing that kind of guidance and support?
All right, first a funny story. I was speaking, and I don't remember where I was speaking, but the MC went to introduce me, and he's talking about foster care, and he's talking about working with kids, and his final statement was, Shawn has touched over 100 kids. It's like, no, dude, no, that doesn't work. Please, no. So I had to clear the air about that. No, I haven't touched any kids.
Right. Yeah.
And
No.
but the whole room, we had a big laugh, but that was funny. All right, so oh wow, like honestly, dude, this is the funny part. I can't take any credit for it because when Marie and I got married, I was very clear I didn't want kids.
Mm.
Okay, and she wasn't supposed to be able to have kids, so because of some medical stuff, and then we're married 9 months, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." I'm like, "Oh, that yeah, that's cool, right?" No, uh, so and at the
Hold
same
on.
time,
Hold on. Walk me through this a little bit. You're just, yeah, I like how you just passively pass. Yeah, so we were 9 months in. So you're both like, one, she thinks she can't. Two, you think
yes,
she can't. Two,
yes,
you don't even really want
no,
that
I was very
moment.
adamant, to the point, Michael, to the point that when she found out she was pregnant, she was scared to come tell me. Like,
So,
that's how adamant I had been about not wanting kids. Um,
so how do you react in this moment when she says, "I'm pregnant"? What's
yeah,
outside? What's inside?
I think I remember that was so long, dude. That was 18 plus years ago. Um, I think I was okay with it, and I was kind of excited,
Nice.
because things had changed a little bit. But at the time when she got pregnant, she was teaching third grade, um, at a public school, and I was a youth pastor. Like
Mm.
um, and then I had resigned because we wanted to move north. We wanted to move. We were living in Florida at the time, and we had wanted to move closer to family. And right after I had resigned, and she was, let's see, she was probably 5 months pregnant, 4 months pregnant at the time. I resigned. She was going to finish out the school year, and we were going to move. Um, and then we find out that they weren't renewing her contract because she was in a grant position. Um, so I'm unemployed. She's now going to be unemployed, and we're going to have our first kid. Um, yeah. And we had friends who had told us about this girls' home that needed some parents. They needed cottage parents. Um, and I was just like, that's not really my thing. We're not really interested. And this went on for months, where Mike would come to me and he'd say, "Hey, why don't you go check this out?" And I'm like, "Mike, no, we're not interested." Um, and so for 5 months, he's like, "You need to go check this out." And I'm like, "Mike, are you an idiot? We're not interested." Um, and finally, 7 or 8 months pregnant, and we had been in Michigan for a baby shower, and we're driving home. And in Florida, we stop at this place on a Sunday afternoon because we knew nobody would be there. And we could just drive in, and then we could tell Mike, "Hey, we checked it out. It's not our thing. Now shut up and leave us alone." Um, and we drive onto this property, and instantly, like, there's this feeling of peace, and it's like, this is where we're supposed to be. And I'm like, yeah, right. So I'm what, 23, she's 21, and we're 8 months pregnant. They're going to give us a house full of kids. Not going to happen. We'll go interview, but this ain't going to happen. Nobody is this stupid, right? Nobody is dumb enough to make this happen. So we go and interview at this children's ranch. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, you're hired. Like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. So we moved in to this brand new 5,000 square foot, beautiful 8-bedroom home on an island, basically in the heart of Florida, surrounded by swamp. But it was gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. We move into it as 23, 21-year-old, and you know, almost 9 months pregnant. We move in on July 15th. Our son's born August 7th. And I think August 18th, we got 5 girls in our home. So we went from newlyweds, a family of 2, to a family of 8 in a matter of a 2-week time span. And that's our introduction to foster care. And the reality was, when we moved in, the training that they gave us this manual that was like this big. And they said, here's our manual. Some of it we use, some of it we don't. Yeah, figure out what works for you. Good luck.
Nice training. Well prepared.
Yeah. So, and that was 18 years ago.
Dang. So you went from not really wanting kids and wife not being able to have kids. And in 1 year, you had one of your own and got 5.
Yeah.
And moved to Florida.
No, we had been living in Florida.
Oh, okay. Whew. Jeez.
Yeah.
Did that change life a little bit?
Yeah, just a little. Just a little.
All right. So now you're in the foster world now, and you have your own, and you're experiencing what it's like to have more than just one. What gets you from Florida to Ohio?
So we spent a year in Florida, and you're cutting out. I'm not sure what's if it's just on my end or if it's on your end or what. You're like really janky and fuzzy, and the audio is really bad. But I'm just gonna keep pushing through until somebody tells me to shut up.
Do it.
So, and maybe you can figure out the signal on your end, or maybe it's my end. I don't know.
Probably me. It's always me.
So we moved after a year in Florida. We knew that we kind of had found our groove. Like, we really enjoyed working with the kids, but we knew that we wanted more training. And so we ended up moving to North Carolina to another home there with boys, working with boys, and got some training. We ended up being in North Carolina for 10 years. And then 7 years ago, we had the opportunity to move to Ohio and kind of open our own program. And that was a unique opportunity. And so we've been here in Ohio for the last 7 years.
Okay. Now, you're still in the foster family business, right?
Yes, we are licensed as a group home, and we work with kids that are in the foster care system.
How has that impacted your life? I kind of said that right when you were about to take a drink. I have great host skills.
How has what impacted my life?
Being a foster parent, having the amount of kids going in and out and through your house, the trials and tribulations of it, the gifts and curses of it. But
I think it's definitely, we found our passion. The interesting thing is that most couples that kind of do what we do, the average lifespan or lifespan is 9 months. They do a 9-month tour and they're done. They decide that that's not their gig. But it's a lifestyle. It's I don't know. We've gotten burnt out a couple times and tried to transition out, and then it's like you're gone for a month or two, and or you make the transition, and then all of a sudden you're right back in it. And so I don't know. It's 110% like we want to empower kids to do better, to be better. And you learn, I mean, so much more about yourself than you could ever teach kids. And so I guess my goal and my purpose is just to show kids that you don't have to be defined by your past. You don't have to be defined by what your parents did. You can be different. You can make a choice to make the change and do better for your family, for your kids, for your relationships.
I love it.
You're totally like, this signal's horrible. I hope
You're
other
great,
people can see you, because I can't see you.
though. You're doing great. I'm watching it twice.
You're
You're
watching
doing
it.
an amazing job. So Shawn Douglas, hardest thing you had to go through.
You cut out.
Hardest thing that you had to go through
Hardest thing I had to go through,
in your life.
like in life?
In your life.
Huh. I don't really, I don't know, man. That's a interesting question. The first year of marriage was hard. Like, I mean, we've been through some shit shows. So, I don't know, because I don't ever look at things through that lens. Like, I don't ever sit and look back at my life and go, what was the hardest thing I've ever been through? Like, I've never, because every day you go through shit. Every moment, like you just have to choose the perspective. We've been through a lot, like, but when you look back and you look with perspective, it's like we've always been so blessed. And I know that's a generic, okay, stupid word. What the hell does it even mean? Lucky, fortunate. But I look at the same thing, and I look at people who have gone through similar things, and they don't feel the same way. So what's the hardest thing I've ever been through? Okay, my mom left when I was 5. Like, that sucked. That was pretty shitty. My wife lost her job, and we lost our house at one point when she was working as a caseworker for adoption, and I was still working in a group home, and we ended up losing our house. That was pretty shitty. We've been through allegations of kids saying that we did things that we didn't do. Those are always pretty shitty situations. So I don't know. I guess it's just perspective, dude. I've never looked at my life and gone, what's the hardest thing you've ever been through? Because I always get through things, and I'm always so grateful for the lesson. And what's been the most long lasting, the biggest impact is definitely at 5 years old when I came home from school and my mom was gone. Like, hands down, that has been probably the biggest defining moment that has had that ripple effect. But it happened when I was 5. So I mean, you know, I don't know that was probably the worst answer you've ever had to that question.
No, I mean, one, it was honest, which I really appreciate. There's no worse answer to that. And two, it's like having like one of the worst things that happened to you at 5, and then having that no longer impact you how it did then, but then also subconsciously how that just stayed in you and how that could have dictated and played a part in everything, knowingly or not. That makes it even more so, because then that one domino caused numerous other dominoes to fall.
Oh, absolutely.
Hope I wasn't too choppy on that, but that's tough.
No, you're clear again.
Really.
Don't try and inhale water. It doesn't work. It's not really good.
It does the opposite.
Yeah, I'm not a dolphin, apparently. You're a fish or something.
So you said, so you go through this traumatic experience, 5 years old, affects all the way until like 3-4 years ago, you said, when you really worked through it and grew through it, and started, or at least understanding it better. What from that? So it's so funny. It's because from that situation, and this is just me spitballing in the wind. You can tell me I'm the dumbest person to ever have a conversation with you about this. So that happens, 5 years old, right? Your mom leaves, does things to you. Then you don't want to have kids, right? Probably no connection.
Right? Yeah, probably no connection.
right. And then you find out you are having a kid of your own, and you're going to be a foster family for 5 girls. And all of a sudden, it's like that purpose, that passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That mission starts becoming clearer, right? You start feeling it, because we have to feel it before we can acknowledge it, right? Can't acknowledge something we don't feel, right? And it keeps driving you towards this bigger picture that you have, this bigger goal, right? Like your purpose. Sorry, I think something so high, I try not to say goal. I want to give it the respect it's due. It's purpose, right? You're purpose driven. And it's almost like the thing that you feared because of your experience then became like your driving force as a man in your life, is like making sure people know that what happened to them doesn't mean the future is like that. That people are loved and cared about, right? That you don't have to be a prisoner in your mind, right? Like all these things that you were to a degree, you turn around and say, it's not like that. That doesn't have to be it. And you don't have to be like it.
Mm-hmm.
So in a weird way, even though I hate this phrase, you're like the mess became the message.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reality. And it's interesting because, you said 3 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever, that I began to deal with this or work through it. But as I said earlier, I've worked through it probably 20 times over the past 40 years, and it's all, and I'm willing to bet that over the next 20 years, I'm going to work through it again another 15 times. It's that understanding and looking at our past and how that's impacted us without even knowing, like the subconscious. So I'll give you a situation real quick. I was working with a coach, And this is the power of questions, dude. The power of questions. I was talking to my coach about a situation that we were going through, and with a kid that was just really tough. And it took, she asked me one question that literally changed my life. And I don't even remember what the question was, but it opened me up to see how I had been dealing with a situation, in that the way that I was dealing with it was connected back to when I was 5 years old. Like, and that one question shed light on that. And it was like, when she asked me that question, I was like, okay. And at the time I'm like 39 years old or something, or 40, going to be 40. And I was like, how the hell have I not seen? And at that point I'd been a foster parent for 15, 16 years or whatever. I'm like, how have I been so blind to that? Like, it's like so blatantly obvious to probably a million people in the world, but I couldn't see it. And so the power of questions in our lives. And so I encourage people, never stop exploring, never stop asking those questions, because it takes one question to change your perspective and to open up a whole new dimension. And so then that leads to that whole new journey of awareness of, then I can look back and I can, oh, I can see 5 years ago when I made that decision and go, oh, that makes sense. Whereas I just thought I was making a good decision at that time, because we're all so smart and brilliant, and we don't ever make decisions based on our subconscious, or, it's all based on logic. But it's just so funny. So just I just encourage people to keep growing and keep digging in and keep learning. Like that's part of the fun.
So before, tell everybody where to find you and things of that nature, there's a story that I've been waiting for you to tell me.
Oh.
I still with a kilt and a biker bar.
A kilt and a biker bar.
Every good story starts this way.
So good friend of ours who we worked with, we were going to an employee Christmas party. And this was a themed Christmas party. And so everybody was supposed to dress up in garb according to their heritage, right?
Okay.
So I'm not really a dress up kind of guy, so I went, I think, in khakis and a polo. That was, call me Midwestern white American dude. We can call that my heritage. Nice. Forget about the British and English and Irish and all that jazz. But my good friend Jay shows up, him and his wife, in kilts in full Irish garb, because they even have kilts that match their original their colors. And for whatever reason, that's just their thing. Then when they heard about this party, they went all out. So they show up, and at this specific party, there tends to be a lot of drinking, and it's a employee Christmas party. And it was at one of the higher ups' house. And so we're all there hanging out, partying, drinking, and the party's kind of coming to an end. But we had gotten a hotel room in town, and weren't ready to go. We're ready to go home, right? And so somebody says, well, let's go to we can go out since the party's winding down. Let's go to a bar. And they're like, let's go to Mikkel's, right? So Jay and we're all thinking Irish pub, right? Mikkel's, gotta be Irish, right? Yep. And she goes, it's a private club, but I'm a member. So I just, you guys just have to go in with me. Yeah, no problem, right? So we all head over. McKell's, Irish, kilt, no big deal. We pull up, and McKell's is actually Mick Kale's. It's a biker bar.
Nice.
Members only biker bar. So we end up at a biker bar with Jay and his wife in full Irish regalia, in a kilt. Jay's a big guy, and he's already like had way too much to drink. But anyhow, he ended up buying drinks for everybody just to fit in, because he was. And we walk in, of course, and you have all these. This is a rough crowd. Like, this was not a. This was not a. Yeah, it was one of those establishments. It was a true biker bar.
All right.
But Jay ended up dancing with just about everybody there, guy and girl.
Nice. And buying everybody drinks. That's the way to win
think
a room.
he's a tequila guy. So he
Both came
was
off.
doing shots of tequila with everybody. I think they probably went through 2 bottles of tequila just with him. But yeah, that was my story of how I ended up in a biker bar with a guy in a kilt.
That's amazing. I love it.
That was quite the
private
night.
biker bar. That's even better.
Private biker bar with a guy in a kilt.
Even better.
And then we went to leave. It was hilarious because it's raining out, and he didn't want to go. He's like, I'm like, Jay, get in the truck. I'm like, no. I'm like, Jay, get in the truck. No. He was like, you're gonna take me somewhere. I can't tell you what he really said, but it was hilarious. I've never seen somebody so happy in all my life.
Shawn, man, I have to give you a lot of praise for coming on here and having the courage to come on with me, because I get deep. It's either deep in BS or it's deep in real life, but it's deep one way or the other. You always got to have boots on with me. So for you to be willing to come on and talk with me and everybody and impact people the way you do, I have to say thank you, and it shows a lot of courage and what you're about, that you're really driven towards what you want to accomplish here.
It's been an honor.
So tell everybody where they can find you.
Where you can find me.
And how.
Easiest is just Facebook. I'm Shawn Douglas. So my name's right there on Facebook. Send me a friend request. We'll connect. We're working on some cool stuff that we're going to launch for the foster community, launching a new podcast, and launching a new group specifically targeted at those who are interested in foster care, or those who are working in foster care. So excited to be putting that out in the next few weeks.
Heck yeah.
And then, just living the dream. We're building a goat farm, apparently, or I don't know. We have goats. We have a couple, hopefully, miniature horses that are coming this week, and we're bringing in a cabin so that folks can come in and spend time with the animals and chill. And yeah, you know me, I've always got 100 things going.
That's right. I'm going to send you a video today, or a picture of the farm that I live on.
Cool.
I think then you're going to be like, it'll be your home away from home. I'll put a cabin out here, your family, and come stay. And be like, man, it's looks like we should travel to another house. Same exact environment.
There you go. And I'm extremely excited for October.
Yes.
For Unleash You Now, the conference.
Dang right. Live in person.
So I'm going to put the shout out there. If you have not registered yet, what the heck are you waiting for?
24 tickets left.
24 tickets left. UnleashYouNow.com.
Yep.
Yes. UnleashYouNow.com. So definitely, I'm looking forward to connecting there, and yeah, super stoked about that. That's gonna be fun.
Heck yeah.
And
I'm super excited to actually meet you in person there, and be able to create stories, not just tell them.
You're gonna meet me and find out I'm like low key introvert. You'll be totally surprised.
It's fine. I'm loud and obnoxious.
I'm a wallflower.
Shawn, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you, and the value you gave everyone here today is priceless.
Thank you, my friend.
As always, your story is your power. Every Monday and Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Own that thing. Till Friday. Till next time.
Friday.
Peace. We are.